My name is Jeff Olson, and I'm going to be your host tonight for our panel, which is Pharma Reps to Plant Partners. Very cool. Wild times, turbulent times, whatever you want to call it, uncertain, best of times, worst of times. It's certainly not the end times, but it's a fascinating roller coaster time, and I guess it's unprecedented. What you're going to hear tonight are stories from women who were in certain times in their life where they didn't want to be in that roller coaster, turbulent, messy time. And in any hero's journey, there was some enlightenment and disruption into a new conversation, maybe some struggle, but in the end, entering kind of a new era or a new chapter. But look, any great story, epic story, any story we're sharing, if you follow kind of the hero's journey, you know, you got a protagonist and an antagonist and a conflict and a struggle, and then there's some sort of character transformation. I think that's any great story is about character transformation. And so tonight you're going to hear from three moms, three former professional pharmaceutical reps who went through that journey into a new world and came out the other side as plant partners. And I guess in the pantry shelf of your brain, if you're tuning in tonight, if you've been invited to listen to this and you're new to this conversation, new to this community, new to these people, I was introduced to this conversation 20 years ago. And I was given enough information to say, cool, tell me more. It made sense, and I wanted to know more. We are a compounding effect of a really good story. I am going to let them tell you their quick story, and I'm going to open it up and let Jen introduce herself, and then if you can introduce Jennifer, and Jennifer will introduce Stephanie, and we'll share our stories and be underway.
Well, anyways, I mean, what a way to kick it off. Yeah, I mean, gosh, transformation is definitely my story. When I first heard about this from Jennifer, I was just sick and tired of being sick and tired. I was a full-time working corporate mama of two under two. And at the end of the day, I felt exhausted. I felt weary. I felt like I was just giving the leftovers to my family. And she shared with me Juice Plus Nutrition. It did make sense for me right away. But because of my husband being such a skeptic, I actually canceled our order. I said no, like a Heisman Trophy for 2 years is the biggest skeptic until the birth of our third child, who has a very severe undiagnosed congenital heart defect. She was our second to be born with an unknown CHD. And so now my ears were wide open. My friend just shared with me one more time. And that is when I was humbled enough to look at the research behind Juice Plus. And I intellectually got it. My pharma brain went on like a light bulb because of the clinical research. I had never repped a drug in my over decade career that had this quality and quantity research. I said yes. I called everyone I knew the next day and said, put it in your body. And we started to experience things that we didn't think were possible. And I say we went from a place of fear to total freedom. And because of the health changes, I decided to break my golden handcuffs, which if you know anybody in pharma, that's what we call it. You get paid a lot of money to be an ant marching. And I just said, I'm out of here. I'm going to go push prevention and offer prevention actually, instead of push prescriptions on people. And it's just been the most incredible journey. My kids are thriving. My daughter has been cleared of her other 2 open heart surgeries. We just are experiencing life in a totally different way, living in our dream home. I now homeschool, so I'm a fully present parent. I give my family everything first. I shape this business around my life, not the other way around. And I'm just forever grateful that Jennifer shared this with me.
We're going to come back to the intellectual rigor and the science and the published efficacy, because I know we have, you know, health professionals and pharma reps maybe tuning in, or anyone who's in the, sort of business of trying to get people better, whether you're medical, health, wellness, fitness, athletic, or just a mom, man, just tuning in because you're interested in this kind of stuff. The intellectual rigor of this conversation, we're going to come back to. So with that, Jennifer, to share your story with us.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thanks, Jeff, for having us. Well, when Stephanie, my dear best friend from childhood to the right of me, shared Juice Plus, we had already radically changed our diet. We were that family eating whole foods and fruits and veggies with every meal, every snack. And we were still either in the doctor's office or quarantined at home most of the time. And it was the worst. My husband and I were so frustrated. I was exhausted, and we were just looking for answers. So we said yes to Juice Plus because Mama here was at the end of my rope. She had been sharing with me for over a year, but it just didn't make sense at the time because I just already felt like we were eating enough produce. But it was just our quality of life had gotten so bad. So when we said yes, within a matter of months, our health really went from desperate to absolutely thriving. I started sleeping for the first time in years because my baby child started sleeping. Our allergy symptoms went away. We struggled with environmental and food allergies. We get sick few and far between. Our energy's better, our mood's better, my sugar addiction's gone. And because of that, I was able to get out of the house and be in the circles of friends and family that I so enjoy being around. So preschool pickup line, elementary school playground, family gatherings, walks with friends. And I just found myself hearing other women, especially with the same struggles that I had just finished with, or needs that I thought, I wonder if what we're doing would help them too. And I literally just asked them that question. And then I sent them all to her because at the time I had already retired from pharmaceuticals and was I was a stay-at-home mom, still am. And I wanted nothing to do with the business. And so when she came back to me and said, Jennifer, you've literally helped almost 24 people. They trust you. What's so wrong with doing something for good and doing something good for your family? I said yes. And within months of saying yes, I had a $1,000 paycheck. And for me, having earned way more than that as a pharmaceutical representative, way before I got married and had kids, that lit my fire, which had been burned out for quite a while. And I started dreaming again. I started dreaming about vacations and private school and retirement and giving. And I got super intentional with doing good. And it just gave me so much passion and purpose again. And within 2 years, I made it to the top level of this company with a corporate benefits package better than I ever experienced in pharma. And now we have a get-to life instead of a have-to life. And we've created options for ourselves. And so I'm forever grateful for my dear friend, Stephanie, who will share her story.
Thanks, Jennifer. So yes, my name is Stephanie Gitz, and I've been eating and sharing Juice Plus for 7 years, or a little over 7 years. When I started, my life also looked very different than it does today. I was sick all the time. I was actually diagnosed with chronic fatigue syndrome, sleeping 12 to 15 hours per day. I was on 8 different prescription and over-the-counter medications being used to treat allergies, asthma, skin issues, constipation. I was doing weekly allergy shots. My gums were already receding, even at 30. And my hygienist told me that that was normal because I was getting older. So I was desperate. I felt hopeless, helpless. I also felt like a 90-year-old, quite frankly, stuck in a young body. Didn't know what to do about it. The doctor's solutions for me were they either didn't have any or they were going to put me on prescription meds. So I was just doing what they told me, but knew that wasn't or couldn't be the answer because I knew that prescription meds only put a Band-Aid, because that's what I also did. I was a pharmaceutical rep as well for 8 years prior to being a stay-at-home mom at this point. So I knew that meds were not the solution. They were just a temporary fix. And I was looking for more than that, but didn't know what to do. I didn't know anything about nutrition. So I tried everything over the course of 3 years to try to fix myself. I tried dietary changes, very expensive vitamins and supplements, juicing, and nothing was working. And over the course of 3 years, I struggled until a friend came over and she shared with me a simple way to get whole food, powdered produce in a capsule into my body every single day. And when she explained to me that we needed somewhere between 7 to 13 servings, I knew that there was no physical earthly way that I could do that consistently on a regular basis. So that was the easy button. It was a simple way for me to do that. Although I will say I was super skeptical that it would do anything for me. Well, I started doing it, and much to my surprise, I started noticing changes over the next 6 months. I started going to the bathroom regularly. I lost my sugar and my carb addiction, which I think was already mentioned. I also got my energy back. I felt better in my mid-30s than I did in my early 20s. At 6 months, I was off all 8 of my prescription and over-the-counter medications. I was thriving. I felt like a new woman. And because of how amazing I felt, I knew I had to go and share this with other people. So I started sharing with those that I love, because when we love something so much, it is normal that we want to go and share that gift with other people. Like when you go to a great restaurant, you have a great meal, what do? You go and you tell people that you love about the experience that you had, because you want them to have the same experience that you just did. So that's all I was doing. So I started doing that. Within 3 years, I did make the top level of the company. And now within 7 years, I'm earning significantly more than I did with my pharmaceutical, within the pharmaceutical industry years ago. And I never thought that that would be possible. I mean, here it was just a stay-at-home homeschool mom when I started. And now, but it's so amazing because we'll get into this in a minute, but you know, this is so much better than that. It's so much better than any corporate job that you could ever have. I mean, here I get to do it like with my closest 3 friends right here on this screen. It's amazing. We get to do it with who we love, when we want, how we want. We don't have a boss. We have total time freedom and financial freedom. And it's just provided a lot more options than what we had before. So.
Wow, that's great. Before we dive into sort of a day in the life of a pharma rep and as sort of a metaphor for, you know, the grind in corporate life and production and performance and all of that, you know, we were talking about before we started recording tonight, just about kind of the elephant in the room. Now, we just heard all 3 of your stories, and, you know, maybe someone tuning in saying, well, they heard it and they just said, okay, that makes sense. But I know there was a lot of resistance. And I want to honor people's resistance, because resistance is actually a good thing, because it's a crazy world we live in, and your bar should be really high. But what was it about this, or how many exposures and conversations? Just talk maybe a little about each of you real quickly on the resistance that you had, and maybe the compounding effect of multiple conversations. And then what was it that sort of triggered you? Well, I guess, you know, many of you had health challenges, and so you were vulnerable and open to it. But just talk a little bit about, I guess, the resistance that a lot of professionals have to this new world or disruptive kind of conversation.
For me, I was afraid of what people would think of me. I thought that I had worth because I had a badge and a free car and nice clothes and 6-figure salary and 6-figure bonuses and free trips. And I was so wrapped up, my little ego was wrapped up in that title. And I really was afraid of what people would think of me.
And what do they think of you? What do they think of you now?
I don't know, but I don't care. Because the people that I do know that love me, they accept me for who I am, and they see my passion and my heart. And so, you know, it's funny. Everything that I was so worried about really, was just my own head and my own stinking thinking, trying to protect me. But, so that was me. And my husband honestly was the bigger skeptic, and he whispered in my ear. He chirped in my ear, which some spouses can do for anybody who's listening. And it took a series of exposures. And actually I put a PowerPoint presentation together for him to present to him the research that I had just found out about this product and this business opportunity for us. And it was entitled, Our Future is Bright.
So your spouse was skeptical.
Yes.
and so we can come back to skeptical spouses, but I was one on the business myself, and I'll just say for those significant others, those spouses, what got my attention was when my wife started paying the mortgage with her little itty bitty plant powder check. And so the evidence is there, the money is there. I was my date, and I did attend events for all the skeptical spouses. Please go as your wife's date or your husband's date if you're a skeptical wife. You know, just attend events, and I had to marinate in the conversation. So thanks for sharing that. That's you know, Jennifer, tell us your resistance.
Oh, sure. Well, I didn't think I needed it. Stephanie ate popcorn for lunch because I used to live with her. So when we started eating fruits and veggies with every meal and every snack, I was like, you need that. I don't. But when she so humbly pointed out to me, because she's my best friend and she can talk to me this way, she was like, yeah, but you're also the sickest person I know. And she was right. And so it was that pride for me mostly, but I had been staying at home for about 5 years, retiring from pharmaceuticals. I'd worked with 2 different major companies, very successful in both. And I just didn't think that people would respect me anymore because I'd been staying at home. I knew that I had a lot of education, I had had a lot of success, but now I was just a stay-at-home mom taking care of 2 kids, and what did I know? Plus, my husband also didn't want to pay for it because we were eating so many fruits and vegetables. He didn't understand why we should invest in more. So I was struggling with a little bit of that too.
Mine was a little different. I at this point in Clayton and our life was Clayton he was providing well for our family. We'd actually paid off all of our debt, including our mortgage. So there wasn't a need financially for the money. I certainly was not monetarily motivated. Let's just say that. And I definitely thought it was too cool. I definitely had a lot of fear. I remember looking at the marketing plan thinking, and at the time I was a busy homeschool mom. So I wasn't getting out a lot. I didn't feel as though I knew a lot of people. And so I remember literally looking at the marketing plan and thinking that I didn't know enough people to get to the second level, which at the time was VF, now is QSC. And so I think that's also a lesson, is that just because you might not have confidence in the beginning, confidence isn't had, it's earned. And so as you're learning along the way and you do the next thing and you're like, oh, I did that. Well, maybe I can do the next thing. And then you do that and you're like, oh, well. And I think it wasn't until I was a Q and MD where I started to think, oh, maybe I actually can get to the top level of the company. And same, which I think for all of us here tonight, what got my husband's attention, and Clayton used to make fun of me. He was like, honey, why are you doing, you don't need to do this. We're fine. Why are you doing this? But for me, and I think a lot of women feel this way, even though we didn't need it, and even though I have a fabulous husband who's never made me feel as though what he earns wasn't ours. When I would ask for permission, he would say, Stephanie, why are you asking me? It's our money. But it didn't feel like mine because I wasn't the one that earned it. So when I got my first paycheck and it was only $60 or $200 or whatever it was, I remember Clayton was kind of like, he was kind of being a smart aleck. And he's like, way to go, honey. You paid for the groceries this week. And I was like, but that's my $200. I earned that. And I had a sense of pride because once again, I was bringing something into our family, even if it was only that. And so it was kind of this little like, oh, that's cute, honey, until I remember I got a comment in my paycheck. And I remember literally where I was when he noticed, and he goes, honey, you got $1,000 this month. That's $12,000 a year. If you double that, we can start buying investment properties with your check. And I did that. And then I doubled it again, and then again, and then again. And of course that caught his attention. So now he no longer makes fun of it anymore.
Day in the life. So farmer representatives, pharma reps, drug reps, you guys put in the hours. Tell us, walk us through a day in the life. How was your performance measured? Promotions, quotas, territory restrictions, compensation. I mean, that's a kind of a lot there, but in just real quickly, give us a day in the life of some of the pressures that you were living through as maybe a metaphor for just corporate life.
Well, do you mind if I go first? So we were measured by signatures on a computer pad. So I was racing against the clock to get a certain number of signatures from healthcare providers every day to show my worth, to basically show that I was working, number one. We were also racing against access. So pharmaceuticals back years and years and years ago used to be this very cushy, desirable job. They only hired the best of the best academically, and they still do that. And yet we don't get to use a lot of our gifts because we don't even get to talk to anybody most of the time. So, the start of the day, for what I remember, and it was a really good job. I do want to say that it paid me very well. It paid all of us very well. We had great insurance. We had a car. But when it came down to it, we didn't use our college education. We didn't use, I went away, Stephanie and I went away for 6 weeks when we worked for the same company together. 6 weeks for training. 12. I repressed it, obviously. But can you imagine leaving your family now for 6 to 12 weeks for training, and then to not even be able to get to talk to a doctor or a physician's assistant or a nurse practitioner? And if you don't get a certain amount of signatures, you are getting a talking to from your boss, not to mention, Jeff, like you said, the numbers, the sales.
Access is so different now too. You've got multiple things. Access can mean where's your product that's in your bag on insurance plans, which directly impacts your ability to have any attainment in your quota, because you might be the third product that insurance company says that doctor can prescribe, but only after they've failed 2 generics. Right. And so you've now got 2 6-month periods that you have to wait for your doctor to even be able to prescribe your product. And it's just this whole rigmarole, and you have zero control over who sets your attainment of quota or your quota. So, and quotas were constantly changing. Jennifer, you said this earlier, but I had my last year in pharma, my quota changed every quarter. And so the second I would figure out how to grow one product, because you usually don't carry just one product anymore. You're a rep carrying 4 or 5 products. They would change the compensation plan, and my bonus now would be on the other product. And I'd scramble to try and figure out how to get that product up, and then they'd flip it again. And so, you really felt like your head was just spinning, trying to even have intellectual conversations that were of value. And if you were a good rep, which Jennifer and Stephanie and I were, that's what we were there for. We wanted to help educate these doctors and these healthcare professionals on what was the best thing to help their patients get results in that disease state. And we were so muzzled, and we just couldn't do that. And so you really do. I felt like a glorified caterer. My days, I would get up, I would be taking somebody coffee, it would spill in my car or on me. I'd wait for 45 minutes in an office, I'd hand out all of those. And then with the Sunshine Act, I had to get signatures for everything, because doctors could only have a certain amount of money each year that you could spend on them. And then, you were doing a lunch, and sometimes you'd sit in that lunch for 2 hours and the doctor never even came back. Right, ladies? It's like, oh my gosh. And then you drive 2 hours home and try and get a few signatures, because, maybe your time, you weren't even able to see the doctor. So you're trying to scramble to make up to get some signatures to make it seem like you've done something. And so at the end of the day, you're coming home exhausted, at least for me, in the end of my career, which I agree with Jennifer. I loved what I did when I could have conversations. I loved what I did when my product was the number one, product on the insurance plan. I loved what I did before I had children. But then when I would come home, it just felt like I just jumped through hoops all day and got nowhere. And at the end of the year, I was going to have a performance evaluation based on a number on a spreadsheet that was spout out by somebody from corporate who has no idea what it's like to be in the field. That's how I felt.
By the time I think all of us came along, when the industry first started, I think there was a little more value there. There was one rep maybe per territory. You carried multiple products. You actually had time with the doctor because each company only had one rep. But by the time, I remember when I got my job, I was so proud, because I knew it was it was a big deal for me to get into the pharmaceutical industry. It was like my first, like I made it. I had a big check, and we got the car and the insurance and the health insurance and all that stuff. But then what I quickly realized once you get out into the field is that at just our company, we had 4 reps per territory. The territories were not very big. But then multiply that times however many pharmaceutical companies are out there, and all of a sudden, there are maybe 20 reps trying to get in to see one doctor on a particular day. Don't forget, their checks are not being made by seeing us. They're being made by the patients that they're seeing. So now we are an annoyance, because we're going into the doctors trying to get their time. And so what ultimately, we were lucky if we would get 1 minute. And I remember specifically being with a manager one day, and I got dinged because within 1 minute, he said that that was like written up, that I failed because I didn't get in 4 products within 1 minute. Now, how can you educate anyone on anything, 4 products in 1 minute? And that was what was expected. So it no longer was, we quickly all, I think, none of us felt valued. We felt like, as Jen said, professional caterers, and essentially what we became were expensive advertisements.
Mm-hmm.
We were there. If you could just get your product name in, if they heard it that day, you knew they were more likely to write a script for it because they heard the name. You know, Zocor or whatever. I shouldn't even say that, but whatever the product name is, they heard it, and that's all you were counting on, is how many times can my product name be heard, so that they remember to write it next time they write a script for the patient.
All three of you are very well educated, and you took, you know, a pharmaceutical rep position, and you sort of dove into it with the idea of using your intellect. Talk to us about sort of the drug efficacy, you know, the published science in the drug world with the pharmaceuticals you represented, and now coming into, you know, being a plant partner, the published efficacy. Now, I think I'll let you guys tell me how many studies, but just the intellectual rigor and the evidence and efficacy of, you know, what's behind door number A and what's behind door number B.
Can I talk about this one first?
Yeah.
These ladies, I stayed up. So when Jennifer came to my doorstep and I put my finger in her face and said, "Don't bring up Juice Plus to me," literally that happened. And she said, "I love you. And because I know what I know, I have to." It humbled me. And so that night at 11 p.m., I went to the Juice Plus website.
Jennifer, can I just say how brave that was? Like, that's just that's how our business works, but it's that brave moment that was disarming. There you go. Keep going.
Totally. Oh, totally. I mean, yeah, I mean, it was amazing. I channeled Jennifer every day. I'm like, be Jennifer right now. But I went to the website, and what spoke to me first was that all the clinical research was linked. So I thought that was really forthcoming and transparent. I was like, that's interesting. And there were so many links. There were so many.
By that is linking to something like PubMed or the citation directly.
Directly, yeah, directly to the abstract of that research study, where I could read it. I could read the study design, the setup, the results. I could understand every facet in the human body that this was proving to do something in. And again, you have maybe 3 or 4 studies in a product's lifetime. My product I was selling, I had for 15 years. And it had 3 studies, 3. And so I thought, wow, wait a second. Why are they doing gold standard pharmaceutical level studies on a food product? And that's when I got it. Their mission is to change how the medical field is viewing nutrition in relationship to disease. They want to wake them up. And the only way that they're going to do that is by speaking their language. And that is where my heart was just set on fire. I mean, I was up till 4 a.m. reading every study front to back. And I think at the end of this year, there'll be 41. But then that these studies were published in peer-reviewed medical journals, the same journals that I was standing in front of my doctor every day, asking them in the 30 seconds that I got with them, please take a look at your, American Academy of Dermatology that came today, doctor, because there's this article about my product in there. And Juice Plus was fruits and vegetables and berries. And those peer-reviewed medical journals, that's a panel of doctors who are saying this is noteworthy enough that we should be talking about this with our patients. And that is when it totally flipped for me. It was the quality and how many disease states it had been researched in that I just thought everybody needs to know about this. And if this had a prescription label on it, Jeff, every doctor in America would prescribe it.
Well, I think plant powders are going to become standard of care in modern medicine someday. And I think our community, our culture is up to something in that space. We're putting points on the board. Jennifer, tell us your thoughts on the intellectual rigor and the efficacy of plant powders.
Sure. Well, I don't have much to add to what Jen said, because I think she just describes it and explains it so beautifully. But the thing that sticks out to me the most, because that was our job was to know these studies inside and out, to be able to sit at a level of a doctor, to be able to intellectually speak their language, and to educate him or her on this drug. So we had to know more about this drug than the doctor to be able to educate him or her. What I love about Juice Plus is they don't have to study safety. The number one thing that all these research studies have to show for the drugs that are being prescribed, the number one thing they're looking at is it safe for you to put it into your body? Fruits and vegetables don't have to prove safety. So the number one thing that is being looked at Juice Plus is the efficacy. What is it doing in the body? And the things it's doing in the body are remarkable. So that's the number one difference. With drugs that are being prescribed, they have to look at safety first. So some don't even cut it. They don't even make it past that. But this will pass all safety studies. And so you're looking at what is it actually doing? And it's all positive. There isn't a PI, which means package insert, talking about all the side effects that go along with it. Yeah. It's amazing.
And that's also why pharmaceutical drugs have to have so many participants in their study, because occasionally you might, if you're sharing with a doctor or a pharmaceutical rep, they might say, well, your product doesn't have it so many participants. Well, we don't have to prove that we're not going to kill people. Also, what matters is whether or not it is the p-value in the study, which basically is saying, if this study was repeated, would you see the same results? And our p-values are saying that, yes, if the study was repeated, you would see the same results over and over and over again. That's the important part that needs to come across. So
yeah, I just want to add one thing quickly. I know we're running out of time, but the number one thing that made sense to me when I first read was bioavailability, because I was in dermatology and I was moving into biologics for autoimmune diseases. And that was the number one thing, is that you had to prove to your doctor that the body recognized it and absorbed it. And Juice Plus was 100% bioavailable. So that was one thing right there for me. And then I really started to think about it. Okay, well, how is this different than a vitamin? You guys, the body doesn't recognize vitamins. You pee out 70%, but they became the largest vitamin supplier in the world when I was working for them. And you want to know why? Because that is a $1 billion industry, vitamins and supplements. And they saw that. The pharmaceutical industry saw that. We are trending towards, thank gosh, taking care of ourselves with preventative, but they're doing it wrong. They're pushing things that don't work. My actual medical liaison was sitting next to me, and they leaned over and they said, I cannot believe we're selling vitamins. It's such a crock. Vitamins do not work. The body does not recognize mega doses of any synthetic one thing. We need whole food nutrition. And I didn't get it then. I wasn't in any of this when he told me that. I just knew I could buy my prenatal at the home office for $1.50.
The single greatest correlated factor to health and vim and vigor turns out to be zip code. And what I mean by that is community. Whatever community you live in tends to be the most highly correlated to your health. And this community I've been a part of for 20 years, and it continues to impress me. We seem to continue to recruit up with the quality of people that are jumping into this sandbox, locking arms with us. And look, I believe health is one of the greatest gifts we can impart to the next generation. I believe private enterprise is one of the single greatest gifts we have here in the modern world. And I'm passionate about this work that we do. It is good work. For those that are just tuning in for the first time, knowing this community and this culture, what kind of invitation would you leave with them to say, hey, maybe I'll come to this next event. Maybe I'll plug into some more education. Maybe I'll connect with the person that shared this with me. What's the invitation that you would extend to those that are just kind of tuning in for the first time?
I would just say you owe it to yourself, and you owe it to the person whose story you might change once you know better. Because I said NO until I KNOW'd enough. Until I knew enough, I wasn't going to allow myself to understand. And once I did, oh my gosh, I would just say you deserve to at least explore this with whoever invited you or shared with you, because they care about you and they love you. And they're doing it because we truly, for me, I believe no person should have to make a decision out of fear for their health or their child's health or their finances. Nope, not on my watch, because we got 2 gifts to offer you. And that's all they want. They just want you to know that it exists.
Yeah. I would just ask, well, what if you too? Why not? What do you have to lose in exploring something? Would you be open enough to consider what it would look like for you? I spent too many years living for nap time and bedtime and walking with blinders on. And I will tell you that even in my pharma days, when I thought I really had made it and just had an easy breezy job and on top of the world, I wasn't living with passion or purpose. So what have you been made to do? Are you stepping into your gifts? Are you stepping into the life you were made to live? Anyone could do this, not everyone will, but why not consider it and take a look at the community, at the gift of the nutritional products, but also I believe equally or as big of a gift is the community of this business, because it gives you options that you may not even be able to even consider right now.
Yeah. I just encourage you to not to make judgment calls on what you think people will be interested in versus what they won't be. People join this community I learned, I think it was Catherine Lee said, that people join for 3 C's: cash, community, or cause. So don't make a judgment call and think that somebody wouldn't want to do it because they make too much money. Well, maybe they're lacking purpose in their life, or maybe they could use the cash. The other thing too is that I think that we're all here on this earth to make, or at least I hope, we all want to leave it better, and we all want to have an impact on this world. And that was one of my big wake up calls personally, was that I definitely was very eager to share the product because of the impact it made on my health. And I of course I wanted to pay that forward. Why wouldn't I? But what I didn't realize is that I could have an equal impact on somebody's finances. And so for a year and a half, I refused to share that. And I always give the illustration. I kind of had my hand behind my back of this other amazing gift. I just didn't see it as a gift until I was called out on that, who was I to make that call for somebody else? And I needed to get over myself because there were people that I could largely impact their life in another profound way. So I came back and I just did this and said, oh my gosh, I've got this amazing thing that can help impact your family's health the way it has ours. And oh, by the way, there's an amazing opportunity attached with it if you're interested. And some will be and some won't be. And whatever, that's okay. But you'll be surprised at how many people will be interested in taking you up on that offer if you just offer it.
We know what we know and we know what we don't know, but it's what you don't even know you don't even know, where enlightenment and possibilities start to sort of show up. And I was introduced, as I said, 20 years ago, 7 years ago, 5 years ago, 3 years ago. This conversation's been going on for 27 years, and it's going to go on for 27 more because it's trending, it's timely, but most important, it's timeless. These are plant powders, people, and it is a billion-dollar company that's built on the intellectual rigor of what that matter compounds over time and does to the human body. And everything else is just icing on the cake. So with that, I'll leave it there. God bless everyone. Have a great night, and we'll see you on the field of play.